Good morning, good day, and good evening to all our attendees joining us for today's latest Data Science Central webinar. I'd like to start our event off today by thanking IBM for sponsoring today's event. IBM has just recently become a partner and supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we are honored to have them sponsoring our webinar today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation for some of our other recent sponsors, including Pivotal, Microsoft, Hortonworks, Oracle, Tableau, and Teradata, to name just a few. These past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you've not had the opportunity to view them, I'd encourage you to take a look as they do provide some very useful information. Today's webinar is entitled 7 Reasons to Combine SPSS Statistics and R. And before we begin, I'd like to just briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be approximately 1 hour long. We have 2 panelists that I'll introduce to all of you in just a few moments. We should have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A following the presentation, and this event is being taped and will be made available later on this afternoon at datasciencecentral.com. I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation. We will be reviewing them and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. My name is Tim Madison. I'm one of the co-founders of Data Science Central, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, John Peck and Murali Prakash of IBM. John is a senior engineer at IBM, where he is now part of the product strategy group. He received a PhD in economics and taught econometrics and statistics for 13 years before joining SPSS at the dawn of the PC era. At SPSS IBM, he has designed and developed many features for the SPSS Statistics product. In recent years, he has concentrated on Python and R programmability. He is also an author of nearly 100 programmability modules and extension commands. Murali is a product marketing manager at IBM and as portfolio marketing manager in IBM Analytics technical marketing team, currently leads the IBM SPSS Statistics product line. He is recognized as a subject matter expert on predictive analytics and has worked with many clients across industries and geographies. He's graduated with master's degrees in statistics and master's in information technologies from the University of Glasgow. Thanks for being with us. We're looking forward to your presentation this morning. According to Rexer's survey, R is the analytic software of choice for data scientists, business analysts, and data miners in the corporate world. Despite R's popularity, adoption of R has lagged due to a few limitations like deployment, user interface, learning curve, data complexity, output, performance and scalability, collaboration, and finally, enterprise security. In today's webinar, we will discuss these challenges related to R and help you understand how you can overcome all of these limitations by integrating R with IBM SPSS Statistics. Before I pass on the presentation to John, who's going to get us started, we just have a quick survey that I'd like to ask our audience to participate in to get a sense of where you are with R. If you can just mark the appropriate box, are you currently using R Statistics Analysts? Please just check yes or no. I'll give you just a moment here, and then we'll proceed forward and see the results and then move forward. Okay, here we go. There you go. Very good. Wow, almost an even split. So John, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can begin the presentation as soon as you're ready.
Thanks, Tim. I think Murali is going to start. Yeah.
All right, no problem, John. Yeah, thanks. All right, no problem. Tim, thank you so much. So folks, this is Murali Prakash. I think you just had my introduction right in the start. So Tim introduced me, and if you did take a look at my profile picture, I was looking forward to talk to you guys today, right, about combining R and SPSS statistics, to really know what it really means. What are the 7 reasons why you have to combine these 2 things, right? So just to set the stage, I'm sure a lot of you, from the results that we are seeing, a lot of you are using R, right? And some of you might be still thinking about using, or you already have used it before, or you're not using it maybe now, right? So typically what we're going to do today, how we're going to spend the rest, 30, 40, 45 minutes or so, is about literally looking into, what are the things that we're looking at in terms of SPSS statistics and R, and we will look at briefly into some of the limitations or challenges, I would call them as, in trying to, trying to use analytics the way you want to use, okay, in terms of whatever you're trying to do for within the organization or with respect to data, okay, we're going to see what are the challenges there and how we can actually solve these challenges using or integrating two things together, right? And so we're going to see some of those today as well. And also, the other interesting point is about, making R usable for non-programmers. So have you thought about, right, where today a lot of business analysts, a lot of business users, really want to use analytics to really make decisions within their companies, right? No matter what the role that you're in. Okay, so if somebody is using R within the company as enterprise stuff, then if you really want to make those analysis results available for those users, how are you going to make it? So we're going to see all that stuff, and we're going to probably see how this can be a very ideal deployment vehicle for our programs, no matter in whichever capacity that you're using. Okay, so before I get there, okay, let me just quickly introduce you to IBM SPSS Statistics. And IBM SPSS Statistics has been in business for more than 40 years, and a lot of people have been using it, from statistics researchers, data scientists, data analysts. So, typically people who are working with data are probably using this particular tool, and why they're using it, right? So, to answer that simple question, if you have large, complex data sets, and you really want to apply some advanced statistical procedures for those data sets to get some analysis done, and why you're doing this analysis to really, make some high-quality decisions, right? So that is typically what statistics has been useful for, and not just that, you can really get much deeper insights. It's just not about replaying the tools like Excel and everything else. I'm sure a lot of you are R users, so you know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of getting the data and really finding those deeper insights, deeper patterns, right? And then with confidence intervals. And the other important aspect when we're doing all this is the capacity or the capability to visualize it, right? So different types of visualizations to actually know exactly what the data represents, what kind of analysis you're doing, and how this visualization will really help you to drive decisions at your organization, including like geospatial analysis and a lot of other things that come in around today. It's becoming so important for all of us, right? And the other thing, very important thing about is IBM SPSS Statistics really caters to different types of users. For example, let's say you're a programmer, right? So you can use the programming way as well. You can use this command syntax language for really a program, okay? Or if you really want to use the menu-driven stuff, let's say you're one of the business analysts who really want to get into programming, or maybe it's not your cup of tea. So you can actually, put the data in. You can do the menu-driven stuff and using SPSS Statistics. Even that that is available for those kinds of users as well. Or typically, the other aspect to look at is, there are so many different languages today in the market, right? Like Python, R, Java, .NET. So some of you could be pretty good at all these programming languages, right? It could be either one of those, Python, R, .NET, Java. So imagine if you really want to use some of the statistics functionality within those programming languages, or if you really want to integrate these things with the SPSS Statistics functionality, SPSS Statistics is a key. Is a really good integration, level product that really fits into whatever you're trying to do. So it really brings your own analytics into play. So you can use it your way, okay? And other important thing is about you can really process data and you can deploy analytics faster with very flexible deployment options that you have with SPSS Statistics. So those are some of the highlights. Really don't want to get deeper today about IBM SPSS Statistics, but really want to get into the subject about why this webinar is important for you today, about 7 reasons to combine SPSS Statistics and R. So with that, I will just pass this over to John Peck to really take you into the next level, and he's been an expert about SPSS and R and doing it for so many years. So no better than John Peck, I would say. So John, over to you.
Thanks, Murli. So hi everybody, and thank you for attending today. As Murli says, SPSS Statistics is a general-purpose statistical package with both a easy-to-use point-and-click interface and a command language that you can use when you want to produce something you're going to reuse or run many times, perhaps, and don't want to point-and-click. R is a companion to this. That I'll tell you some more about the history of this in a moment. But R is, as many of you know, it's a free, open-source, popular piece of software for doing statistical computing and graphics. It runs on Linux, Windows, Mac, and other platforms, as does SPSS Statistics. So it's a good match in terms of platforms. The key thing about R, I think, in contrast to SPSS, is while SPSS is a statistical package with a lot of analytical and graphical methods, R is a programming language for doing statistics. So you have the power of a programming language which is very flexible and can be very useful for someone who is familiar with it. On the other hand, it's got a somewhat steeper learning curve than a statistical package. Statistics focuses really on what solution, what analysis you're doing without necessarily getting into the programming. But R also has a huge collection of statistics and graphics packages that you can tap when you're using it. When the last time I checked CRAN, where most of the add-on packages are hosted, there were over 6,600 packages there. That was last week. There are probably more by now. So there's a huge set of things that are possible to add into your analysis. Now, this is part of the reason why SPSS Statistics provides support for various programming languages, because it gives you the ability to extend the built-in capabilities for the product. We've been doing this for a long time, and we'll see the integration as we go through today. I'll show you some live examples where you can do this. We started integrating the standard programming languages in version 14, which was released in 2007. That first release had Python and support for the .NET languages, we added in 2009, we added support for R in version 16. In version 21 in 2012, we added support for Java. All of these have had multiple enhancements over the years, so these are pretty mature technology. Now, each of them has a somewhat different flavor and somewhat different uses, but we're going to talk today mainly about the R connection for statistics. But whichever you know, if you like Python, if you like VB.NET, if you like R, if you like Java, there's something there for you to use. Now, the SPSS Modeler product has caught on to this trend, and they added support in their scripting language for Python in version 16 2 years ago. They actually use Jython because their front end is written in Java, and that works for them. But they also added the support for R nodes in that version. Current version is version 17 now, so it's been out for 2 releases. Now, all this programmability material, all these add-ons in both statistics and modeler are free. So once you have the base product, whether you have SPSS Statistics or Modeler Professional, you can add in the support in any of these languages without any extra licensing or extra cost. So why did we do all this? Extensibility really gives you the ability to add in things that you can get from other languages, whether it be the language itself or libraries that are available in that language, and use those as if they were built-in native material in the statistics product. So you can mix them in with the native statistics support, as we'll see as we go through this. Furthermore, all the tools, all the materials you need for this are available, no extra cost, so you can create your own and share them, as well as tapping things that are written by somebody else. So programmability really provides 4 kinds of benefits to a user of SPSS Statistics. First of all, the extensibility, the ability to add in new graphics or statistical procedures. Generalization. If you are writing a job that you're going to run periodically or run frequently, and you need it to adapt, it's easy to use the programmability features to make that job more flexible, so that if there's maybe there's some new variables this month or some other groups that you need to analyze, you can look at the metadata, you can look at the environment, and write the job in such a way that you don't have to go back and keep changing the job, tweaking it here and there. We sometimes see customers who are not using programmability who wind up with enormous numbers of jobs that are all kind of similar, but then they have a big maintenance problem and a productivity hit in making all those things current. Automation. There's a lot of things that people tend to do to the output particularly. Maybe you want to edit it, color some, highlight some cells, or select out some subset of the analysis to use in a report. That gets really tedious if you have to do that over and over again. Programmability allows you to automate that so that when you have a report to produce that requires some editing, that editing can all be done automatically. And integration. Programmability features make it easier to integrate statistics output and data with other packages or other software. So before we get into the challenges that we're going to talk about today, I'd like to ask you in a poll here about the challenges that you've come across if you're using R. So to read the list here, the user interface, difficult to learn, trouble accessing data or doing data preparation, performance issues with R, output that's plain text or not really presentation quality, that it's hard, might be hard to deploy R in an enterprise setting where you have not only multiple people producing R code, but multiple people consuming the output from that. And of course, security isn't always an issue. So check the button for whichever you see as your biggest problem if you're an R user, and we'll give you a few seconds and then turn the page and see what the poll says. Okay, I'm going to move on to the results. We see, looks like difficult to learn is the biggest challenge that people see, not easy to deploy, not a friendly user interface. So we're going to see how these issues are present and how we might address them with SPSS statistics and related software. So we see a lot of challenges in adopting R in the enterprise, as we saw in the previous slide. The R doesn't have a standard user interface. There are add-on things for that, but nothing really comprehensive. It's a programming language, so if you're not a programmer, that's a hurdle to overcome. But even if you are a programmer, R is a pretty difficult language to learn to use well. Data. R holds the data in memory normally, and so that limits the size of the data that you can analyze without taking roundabout measures. Output. The output is plain text, typically from R, and so if you're doing a presentation, you have an extra burden in converting that into something you could put in your presentation. Performance can be an issue for R since it's an interpreted language and sometimes some operations in R are pretty slow. Collaboration, deployment, how do you share not only results from your analysis, but how do you share intellectual property that you've built, your programs, how do you put those programs into production applications, and in general, how do you manage all of that material that's so valuable that you create? And of course, security is always an issue. So integration with SPSS Statistics addresses all these issues. There are solutions or partial solutions in the R community for some of these, but in one place using statistics, you'll see you have a general solution for this. So let's look at some of the roles that are involved in using both R and SPSS Statistics. We have three personas here: the business analyst, a typical R user, and a typical SPSS Statistics user. So the business analyst is analyzing data with R programs. The R user might be writing R programs to do specific statistical or graphical tasks, or they might be creating R programs that are going to be used by that business analyst or other R users. The typical statistics user, SPSS Statistics user, would be doing point-and-click analysis using the GUI or possibly using syntax program to produce production jobs. So the pain points here for the business analysts, the biggest one perhaps is they're not programmers, or if they are programmers, they don't want to be programmers. They want to do something else. They want to focus on the business. And they don't have an easy interface that allows them to do that. And they may not have access to enterprise scale data and data management capabilities. For the R user, then the issues that they're likely to have to deal with are scalability. How do I collaborate, share, and manage these assets? How do I deploy things that I've built in a framework where the enterprise can use it to make decisions? And what about performance? For a statistics user, the pain point may be less availability of statistical algorithms that they might find useful in their applications. It takes, when we build a new statistical procedure, a big one in statistics, it takes a year to do that, to do the whole thing from design, from the coding, the user interface, the documentation, the testing, and all that. So you're not going to find as many native algorithms built into statistics as you might find out there in the open source community. What you'll get there is industrial strength, but there won't be as much of it. So how does integrating R help with this? First of all, you can build very easily a point-and-click interface to your R procedures or your R programs that you're running using the built-in custom dialog builder that comes with statistics. You also can use the data preparation and manipulation management capabilities in statistics upstream from doing the R work so that you can reduce the burden on memory and other things that would be difficult to do with R alone. And you get presentation quality output very easily that can be then appears with the statistics output and can be published as in many formats, HTML, PDF, Office formats, and web formats that make it easier to do the reports. For the typical R users, using statistics helps with handling large data sets, helps with deploying your models into operational environments that the enterprise may be using for decision making and monitoring. And it provides access to a way to manage all of that intellectual property and the output that you are so painfully creating. And for statistics users, this integration means that you have access to the latest statistical algorithms via the R connection so that you can do statistics and graphics and not have to learn anything about R itself. We'll see that as we go into the presentation a little further. So let's look a little more at the personas of people who are using the way people use R with statistics and with SPSS Modeler. First of all, there will be the authors, the people who know how to use R or possibly one of the other programming connections that we have available, and know how to integrate it within statistics or Modeler using the APIs that we provide. So they can create nodes in Modeler, or they can create dialogues with the custom dialog builder in statistics and have them running R code. The custom dialog builder is a no programming drag and drop interface for creating dialog boxes in either product. There's different versions for statistics and Modeler. And so you can easily create a dialog box interface, add it to the system, and it's very quick to do. I sometimes do a demonstration where I create a dialog box in 1 minute flat. That would be a simple one, but usually even a complicated one takes maybe only a couple of hours to create. And then, of course, you can share these extensions that you might create with other users. There's a packaging mechanism that allows you to put together all the pieces, the custom dialog, the code, and possibly other items that you need, and there's an easy way to deploy and install that. Now, most of the users of R within statistics are not the people who create the things, not the authors, they're the consumers. So they know SPSS, they know the SPSS interface, they know, or the modeler interface, either way. They can use these artifacts that you create without knowing anything about R. They get their output rendered in the SPSS Statistics viewer, and it's presentation quality output out of the box, whether it be tables or graphics. So putting these things together, using statistics or modeler, you get a nice interface, you get data management capabilities from the basic products, you have ways of deploying that output and editing it in a way that makes it easier to do reports, repetitive reports. There are collaboration tools using collaboration deployment services so that you can share and manage the output and the artifacts that you're creating, and you can deploy these into decision-making systems. So the next thing I want to do is to show you a demonstration of a few features that we have available here. So I'm going to go live here, and you should see statistics in a moment here. Okay, so here you see the data editor in the SPSS Statistics interface. It shows you both a sample of your data, and it shows you the metadata that might go along with this. The statistics interface has three basic kinds of windows: the data editor, a syntax editor for syntax that you might generate or R programs, and the output viewer where you will see the results of the analysis. So first, for the R programmers in the crowd, let me show you how you might write an R program that uses statistics. So here we're looking at the syntax editor window, and that's going to have in it probably regular standard statistics like this descriptives command that you can see here on line 3. But then I can say begin program R, as you see on line 7, and I write R code just the way you would write it if you were writing R standalone, but using the APIs that are available for communicating with the statistics product. So everything from line 7 here through line 12 is R code and will be run using the APIs and the plugin connection that we provide. So if you look at line 8 here, I'm getting the data. This API, the get data from SPSS, does just what its name suggests. It allows me to pull selected data from statistics over into the R workspace. Now, in this example, I'm just getting all the data, but I have a lot of options for controlling how much data I get. I can control which variables appear. I can control how categorical variables are mapped or whether they are mapped into R factors and other aspects of the transfer. I can subset the data on the statistics side, so if I have too much data analyzed in memory, I can bring over just some of it, or I can bring over, say, if I wanted to do an analysis of, say, an analysis for every state in the country, I can iterate through the states, bring them over one at a time, do the analysis, and move on. The next line here is just running a simple linear model in R. Now, I don't need R to run a linear model. Statistics can do that just fine. But for this example, I'm creating a regression model with salary as my dependent variable and a typical R formula expression for the explanatory variables. Now, the next line gives me a way of converting the result of that R computation into a nice pivot table that I can display in SPSS Statistics nicely formatted. So I'm going to run this whole program by clicking the Run button, and we'll see the output here in the Statistics Viewer window. So this is the same output I would have gotten as plain text in the R code, but here I'm seeing it as a pivot table that looks just like the standard outputs that we've come from native operations. So in this case, the R programmer has basically for free, gotten the output improved so that it's something that you could imagine putting in a report without having to rework it. Now, the next thing I want to show you is an example of a regression example. So first, I'm going to run a linear regression using the standard statistics interface. So I bring up the dialog box, or I could have been using the syntax, click the OK button, and there's my regression output. I get a set of tables, and I could have gotten some charts and so on, but I didn't ask for that. So what a regression does is to give me a model predicting the mean of the dependent variable, in this case salary, as a function of independent variables. That's a built-in procedure. There are many ways to do regression with native statistics code. But maybe I'm interested in, instead of the mean, I'm interested in the median or maybe other quantiles of the dependent variable distribution, and I'd like to build a model for them. For that, quantile regression is an appropriate procedure. So if I go down here on the Analyze menu in Statistics, you can see under regression, there are quite a few different kinds of procedures that I can do. All of the ones that have a blue icon with a white plus in them are extensions that we have added to the statistics product. And I could go through and pick any of these. And if I'm a user who doesn't know anything about R, I can pick them just the same as I would pick the native procedures. So here I've selected the quantile regression dialog box. This dialog box was built with the custom dialog builder. Looks just like the native dialogs. I've already filled this out just to save time, but this is going to run the same regression model, salary based on education and time on the job, but I'm going to estimate it for a bunch of different quantiles, including the median, rather than just estimating the mean. So here's my output. I can look at, so here's the quantile. Again, it's a pivot table, but now I produce a pivot table for each different quantile. So I have output that's mixed in. It looks like the same statistics output. But now I can do some more. Because I'm in the statistics viewer with this output, I can improve the formatting. So what I'm going to do here now is to choose Style Output and select all of those quantile regression output tables. You can see there's one for each of the quantiles that I estimated. And then I'm going to go and do some custom formatting, conditional styling. I could do all this totally manually, but what I want to do is highlight the results for the education variable, say. So I select my variable, which is in the rows, and I'll format that using, let's say I put a background color on there just to emphasize it. Continue, continue, OK. And I get now that custom formatting for all of those tables that I just created. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of what I can do with formatting. But the question you might ask is, well, if I have to do this every week because I'm producing a new report, this would get pretty tedious. But behind all of this is statistics code, or something that looks like native statistics code. So this is what I would have gotten if I had generated this code using the paste button from these two steps. Here's my quantile regression command, but it's actually got SPSS standard syntax on it here now because I created this as an extension. And down here is the output modification that I just did, only now with syntax. So if I were doing this, canning this as something I could do over and over again, I would save this syntax and just run that, and it would run automatically without my having to go through the point-and-click interface every time. The next example I want to show you is a bag plot. Bag plot is kind of a two-dimensional generalization of the ordinary box plot. So here's my bag plot. Again, I've got a custom dialog, in this case a very simple one, for my my bag plot. And because I've picked 4 variables here, I'm going to get I'm going to get kind of a matrix scatter plot display of this, where each panel is a bivariate distribution. You can see a bivariate relationship. You can see here's the box part in inner part, and I can see the whiskers, and I can see a few extremes in here. Now, the point of this really is that to do this, to get this R output as a graph over here, I didn't have to do anything to the graphics in R. I just created that plot, and automatically it's mapped into the statistics viewer. Again, it has traditional statistics syntax for this, but the actual graphics just worked. It just came over automatically. Now, the last example I want to show you of this is with SPSS Modeler. SPSS Modeler has a kind of a flow stream user interface, and I can do, it's a companion product I could use with statistics, but it also has an R interface. So I'm going to run here just so you can see the example data. I have some data on the countries of the world and the median age. The countries are identified by latitude and longitude. Simple enough. Now here is a node that was created in the modeler using the modeler R APIs. And so it's going to go out to Google, get the map, and it will display this map. It's running the map over there, and let me bring it over here. So now I have a map, and this is a live map that I can zoom into, look at this, and I can see the average age in each country in the world. Again, done with the R API extensions for Modeler. So you've seen there these 4 examples of using the R integration. And if I can get back to my slides. Okay, so we've seen those 4 examples. We saw the native R code running directly. We saw quantile regression. We saw a graphic, and we saw an R extension running in Modeler. Now, you might be thinking, gee, I'd really like to get some of these. Where do I get these extensions? The statistics product has the ability to download and install these extensions directly from the website. So on the utilities menu, you can go there, and if you have a web internet connection, you can connect to that, and you'll see a list of all of the extensions that we have posted on the SPSS community website. There are over 100 that we have written. There are also third-party extensions where other people have contributed extensions to this collection. So you can pick any of these, download them, install them from within the product. These might be Python, they might be R, they might be Java. It doesn't matter what the language is of the extension. But I can add them in, and then they will appear automatically on the menus, and the syntax that lies behind them, if there is syntax, will be generated and recognized by the SPSS standard statistics syntax editor. I can update them. We add new ones and add updates fairly frequently, so I can come here, see what I've got, see if I've got the latest version, and if not, I can select all the updates and add them in. Now, the ones that we just saw are ones that were created by IBM staff, but you can write your own. So what you need is the custom dialog builder, which is a standard part of the statistics base. You need to install the R Essentials that we provide from the SPSS community website. The user needs to install those. And of course, you need a version of R that you get from CRAN. Once you've done that, the documentation for all of this is available from the help menu in statistics, also available on the web. And then your programs and extensions can be run in the regular syntax stream or with the point-and-click GUI or in external mode, which I'll show you in a minute, using your favorite IDE. So if you're an R user, that probably means you'd like to use this with RStudio. External mode allows you then to run statistics procedures inside your R or Python code from RStudio or another IDE. I want to show you that briefly. Let me see if I can get this going again. So here's RStudio. You can see on the top I've got a program that looks a lot like what I would have run within statistics. This is new in version 23, which we released earlier this year. But now I can run my statistics code, including my R extensions, from within.
John,
RStudio.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't see your live screen.
Oh, you don't see it?
You might want to make sure that you are actually pushing the live buffer there. There you go. I think it's coming
sorry
live now.
about.
That's okay. You might want to restart what you started saying a moment ago.
Yeah. Okay. So here we're looking at RStudio, and you see in the top there I've got a program that's written in R, but it's actually going to run statistics to do its work, and I'll get my output in the bottom. And I also have ability to get the help for the R APIs that statistics has in the same way that I would get them from a package from CRAN. So if we look at this code up here, you see on line 4 I've loaded the library that has the statistics connection to it. And then I've run a couple of commands with the submit API, which is new in version 23 for the R API set. And in this case, I'm running standard statistics syntax, a get command to load some data, and then I'll come back to line 6 in a minute. Then the lines down below here, I'm running an ordinary statistics regression command, and then I'm running the quantile regression command that we saw in the live demo from statistics a minute ago, and then I'm get the output. So let me run this. So now it's loading statistics, and there's my output from having run from statistics and then pumping it out here. Now, as you can see in this case, it's coming out as plain text, which is what you'd expect to see in a console application. But to go back to line 6 up here, I used the output management system in statistics, OMS, to say I want to capture all the output from this job in an SPSS viewer file so that I will actually get the presentation quality output, and the same output that I would have gotten if I had run this natively from inside statistics. And then I run everything I run between that submit API and the OMS, the one down here where I run the OMS end command, will be captured. I'll have an SPV file, and if I opened that in statistics, it would look exactly the same as if I had run it inside the product. So this is a great environment for debugging, developing your extensions, testing things out. You could use it to build an application that was written in R or similarly in Python or Java and embedded statistics inside it. But mainly here, it's a tool for the to help the developer do their work. So I'm going to go back to the slides. There it is. Okay, so what you need to know in order to use this, we have a website, the Developer Central website, which we've had for about 5 years now. And before that, before IBM acquired SPSS, we had another one. We are in the process of deploying a new website that's more modern, has new features, and so you'll see some of the material is still only on the old site. Some of it has already been moved to the new site. We'll be bringing the rest of it over a period of time so that eventually this will completely replace the old site. But you'll find on that site links to the R essentials that you need to install, books like the Programming and Data Management book that has a lot of illustrations on how to do programmability with R or Python or the other languages. All the detailed documentation is there. Many assets for programmability in R and Python and .NET are up there. And as I said, there are over 100 extension commands available from that website. The instructions for all this are on the menu, the help menus on the within the product, and the documentation is all there. So to recap, enabling the use of R within statistics is you need to install the plugin, which is part of what we call the essentials, from the website, which eventually will be migrated. There are, excuse me, you need, of course, also to install a compatible version of R if you don't already have it. Each version of statistics requires a specific version of R to work with it because of the technology we have to build it with. Statistics 22 and Modeler 16 use R 2.15. Statistics 23 and Modeler 17 use 3.1. Generally, we advance to the latest version of R that's available and stable at the time we have to make our development cuts. And, of course, you get R from CRAN. You can have many versions of R installed. I think I have 6 on my machine, so it doesn't matter, if you have other versions of R that you want to use for some other purposes. So here's a shot of our new predictive analytics community. You can get downloads from there, trials, blogs, documentation, forums. The forums are currently not migrated, but that will be happening soon. And there are something like 15,000 posts on the old forums, and we'll be moving all of those over to the new forums as we get that work done. And the downloads capability, which is currently on the old site, will be moved over to the new site, which is actually going to give you access to GitHub for managing those resources and installing all that. But that's still work in progress. So with that, let me turn it back to Murali for a wrap-up, and then we'll take your questions.
All right. Thank you so much, John Peck, and really took us through those wonderful demonstration of how these things actually integrate together, SPSS Statistics and R in this case. So I mean that was great because some of this output that you were able to produce, and the way you can link back things from R and SPSS together, and also at the last you did show the R integrated development environment and how we're calling actually the SPSS Statistics functionality within the library. So yeah, quite a few things there. A lot of it's been done in the last few years in terms of the integration stuff to really integrate these things together to make it really better thing today. And the best part is the integration plugin is actually free of charge, right? I mean, you can just go download the integration plugin and you can play around with it. If you have your SPSS Statistics on your system as well, and the best part here is today what we learned through the course of this 45 or 48 minutes so far is literally looking at some of the challenges. Some of you actually answered the poll, and looking at those challenges and how we can actually solve those challenges. Some of the options that we have just showcased today. So just to give a complete summary of what we actually did today is, so using these things together, it's really beneficial for both. It doesn't really matter if you're using R, great, so you can integrate to solve those challenges. Or if somebody's using SPSS already, I think you really want to use some of the packages, extensions, and there is a way too, right? So this really brings these things together to really make the largest collection of statistical and graphical methods that you can use, and it just really complements one another, right? You have powerful data management capabilities in SPSS, and at the same time you have really so many number of extension packages that you can actually download from R, so they can integrate with stats. At the same time, it's scalable, it's documented, you can really get a lot of help, and multilingual as well. So typically people are using different languages in different countries for sure. So those are some of the highlights of using these things together. But that doesn't really end here. This is just the beginning, right? So with that, I think if you have, I'm sure there are a lot of questions up here. So with that, I'll just pass this over to Tim just to
Great. Thank you, John and Murali. It was a very good presentation, John, and I love the live demo. Very, very nicely done. So
Thanks.
the slide you all see up right now has some contact information. I'm going to advance the slide in just a moment to provide both John and Murali's email addresses, so you guys that are interested can contact them directly following today's webinar. John, most of the questions I think I'm going to direct at you and Murali. If you want to back up anything or add to anything that John might comment, let's proceed that way. So the first question, John, is there a cloud version available for someone to practice with at an affordable subscription price with some sample data? I know, Murali, you just mentioned that the plugin is free, but is there a place where they can just kind of check it out?
There is a free download that you can install. I think you get a 2-week free trial, and you can install the R Essentials and work with that on your desktop. There's also a cloud version that includes the R and Python Essentials, but I think it's still in beta. So I think that will be available pretty soon, but it's not available quite yet.
Okay, very good. Next question is, could output be submitted to other file types from RStudio?
Using that OMS command that you saw in the RStudio example, I can create output. In the example, I created the same output that would be in the statistics viewer, but I could create output using that same mechanism in HTML, PDF, Office formats, a web HTML format that's suitable for display on a tablet or a phone. I can do all that, and I would do it really the same way whether I did it in the internal mode running statistics or in that external mode by using the output management system to select and direct that output and choose the format I want to see it in.
Okay, excellent. So next question is, what are the R model implications in a multi-user environment? With
each version of statistics that's running, you're running an associated R process that's connected to that statistics session. So if I were running, I could, even on a single machine, I could be running multiple versions of multiple copies of statistics. Each would have its own R process, so they don't interfere or relate to each other. Of course, if I'm running them on a network and I have shared data, then I have to make sure that I have multiple readers. I'm only going to have one writer at a time, but I can have multiple sessions going concurrently, and they won't interfere with each other.
Okay, thanks, John. We had a couple questions about sort of the different versions. So the first question I have is the R 3.1.x plugin for SPSS Statistics available? And then the same person was asking about version 21 or 22 for SPSS. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to capture a few questions in one.
Yeah, I got it. Each version of statistics has a plugin that goes with it, and so whenever we release a version, such as version 23, we simultaneously release the R Essentials that goes with that. Those are available from the community website. For the version 22 statistics essentials are also available. In fact, I think they're available all the way back to version 18. So whatever version of statistics you have, you can get the R essentials that goes with it. And, of course, you have to install the version of R that goes with that as well. But they're all available for all of the supported statistics platforms via the website.
Okay, very good. Just sounds like they need to be compatible then. So the next question is, someone wants to know if there's a feature option that you can potentially add. So they want to know, can you have a paste button on the custom dialog so that the syntax is saved for future work?
Yes. The paste button in general in statistics will generate the code behind any of the native capabilities in statistics, and the same goes for the custom dialog builder. Well, if you create a custom dialog, it will automatically have not only the OK button, but it will have a paste button, so you can accumulate that the code behind that dialog in the syntax window. And that code could be an extension command such as we saw with the SPSS Inc. quantreg, or it could be an R program that you put directly in the custom dialog builder. When the custom dialog builder generates the code to go into the syntax window or to execute, it substitutes the values in the controls in that dialog, such as the variable names, into the appropriate places in that R or Python code, and then paste the result of that into your syntax window so you can save that and reuse it in a future session or edit it, and you can see exactly what is being generated. If it's an extension command, such as the quantreg one, then you don't see R code. You see the SPSS syntax code, but all of the extensions are shipped in source form so that if you wanted to look at the code or tweak the code behind that extension command, you have access to it.
Okay, very good. Thoughtful answer. So the next question is, is there an example that you can show how the integration or how integrating R with IBM SPSS enables the user to handle larger data sets when R alone is not able to handle those large data sets?
There are two approaches that you can take to that. I mean, we can't magically give R more memory, but what you can do is use the data manipulation, data selection capabilities on the statistics side to cut down the amount of data that has to be passed to R. So you might, first of all, of course, you would probably select only the variables in that data set that you actually need for some particular analysis. You can also use the split files technology to break up your data set into smaller chunks and process each of those independently, one after the other. And depending on how you do it, you can have all the results come out in one pivot table or one output display, or you can have separate displays. That's all controlled from within statistics. So the selection capabilities, of course, would be the first line of defense there, and then split files will help. Now, if you're using 64-bit statistics, then you'd be using 64-bit R, and so you would have a bigger memory available to you. If you're using the 32-bit version, then, of course, you're limited to what you can do with 32-bit R.
Okay, very good. So this is probably going to be our last question, but there are a few folks that are using SPSS, and this one in particular owns version 23 base, and wants to know if they need to purchase anything else to access the RStudio. So there have been a few questions about the RStudio, so if you can sort of elaborate a little bit there, that would be helpful, I think.
Okay, well, RStudio is just one example of an IDE that you could use on R. When you install R itself, it comes with the kind of R console that what people used to use. RStudio is not an IBM product, so you wouldn't get it from us, but it's free. It's under the GPL, and you can download it from the RStudio website, install that, and then, so if you wanted all those pieces together, you have statistics base, you have the R Essentials that added in the connection and the parts that we have. You have R itself, and then you can install RStudio and take it, or any other R IDE, and take advantage of that integration, both in kind of internal mode using directly the statistics interface, and in external mode using RStudio or another IDE, just as you would do it with a plain R program.
Okay. Thank you, John. Some great questions came in. We have a lot of questions that came in. Obviously, we don't have time to get to all of them today. Again, please take down John and Murali's information if you'd like to reach them later. All the questions that have been answered or asked that did not get answered today, we are sending to both John and Murali, and they will get someone to respond to you. So rest assured, you will get some answer in the near term. I have just a few quick announcements to make to please mark your calendars for June 2nd and our next Data Science Central webinar event, From Insight to Action, Predictive and Prescriptive Analytics, again sponsored by IBM. And then as I mentioned earlier, this event has been taped. If you missed any portion of it at the beginning, you can go later on this afternoon to datasciencecentral.com and you can view the entire program on demand. This brings our webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance, some very thoughtful questions, and a special thank you again to IBM for their sponsorship, and to our wonderful panel, John Peck and Murali Prakash, for their insight into today's topic. My name is Tim Madison. It's been a pleasure being your host for today's webinar. I'll look forward to seeing you all again on June 2nd. Good day.